Hi, I'm Dr. Neha. I'm an engineer, an internal medicine physician, and an executive coach who loves bridging the science of medicine to the art of communication so that you can live your best life. Today, I'd like to talk about self-talk and how the quality of the way that you speak to yourself silently or sometimes out loud, if you're a little bit like me. I walk around the house and I'm like talking to myself, like, Neha, oh no, you should have done it that way. You should have. And my boyfriend is always saying to me, are you talking to me? And usually I'm just talking to me. So notice if you're someone who speaks out loud or talks to yourself internally. Either way is great. We're going to talk about that. Recently, I've spent some time with Dick Schwartz of Internal Family Systems. He's a therapist who wrote an incredible book, actually. It's called No Bad Parts. And we'll talk about how that applies, because a lot of times our self-talk is about beating ourselves up or criticizing ourselves. So let me back up and just say to you, I'm not a typical engineer, at least that's what the engineers told me. I'm not a typical doctor, because that's what all the doctors said. And I'm probably not a typical coach, because I kind of merge all that I've learned in mind-body medicine, being a doctor and working as an engineer at Motorola in the 90s, when Motorola was a thing, with coaching. So I'm not a conventional business owner either, as you might expect. So I'm more of an entrepreneur. And so one of the rules that I've given, my team is that if anybody has something difficult coming up, that they don't have to act like they're perfect in front of me. In fact, the contrary. I think they're welcome to come and ask for coaching. They're welcome to share what's going on. In fact, I encourage it, because then it helps me make decisions of how can I best support you, right? Versus thinking that they're doing something or they're acting differently or they're not up to par in what they're doing. What if we could all grow and learn together? So anyway, I'm thinking as I bring up this topic of self-talk about one of the members of my team that came to me and was, feeling a lot of resistance in her body, kind of shutting down. And she asked, like, hey, can I ask you a coaching question? So I said, sure. And she really started describing an experience of feeling like she wasn't enough. Like if she didn't do anything that she was given perfectly on the first try, that something was wrong. And she was just feeling a lot of resistance in her body and down on herself. She even went so far as to call this part of her bad or not good or evil. Like this is the part of me I don't like. And so as we kind of approached this and I started asking her questions, I brought in a little bit of this internal family systems and telling her listen, there's no real bad parts inside you. There's just parts of you that when you were young couldn't cope. And so she happens to be the youngest of 4 siblings and has these 3 older brothers who were always saying, that's not right. You can't do that. Don't do it that way. Do it this way, right? And so she learned to kind of put away that part of her that was more vulnerable, was more sensitive, sometimes made mistakes or cried. And then she started to believe that was a bad part of her. Not true at all. In fact, what happened in her life so that she could survive that scenario was that she has these, what Dick Schwartz calls protectors, right? That came in, the perfectionist, the one that made high standards, the one that made sure she didn't get mocked or made fun of. And so we started talking about how it served a really good purpose to protect her in her life. And so as you start to notice your own self-talk, as you start to maybe reflect on parts of yourselves you like more or less. Maybe you've outgrown some of these parts. Maybe they're tired. These protectors are tired of protecting you. And what they'd really like to do is something else more fun, right? So what I said to her is, you've got 37.2 trillion cells in your body. And when your mind starts speaking to your body, in a way that it's like hard on it, or, you know, almost like whipping it in shape, like get moving, get going, you're not enough, you're not doing enough. Notice that as an internal divide inside you, because whether you're gaining weight or losing too much weight or doing it too much or not enough, your mind is the one controlling what's happening. And then when things don't go the way you want it to, it blames the body. Oh, you're fat. Oh, you're too thin. You know, oh, you didn't do that right. So what I want you to do is instead first begin by noticing your self-talk, right? In the silent moments when you're in the shower, you're driving, how are you talking to yourself? And then see how you can be compassionate and kind of treat your body and yourself like you would your best friend, how you would speak to them. And I want you to know too, that sometimes it isn't your voice. Sometimes the voice that is running in your head was how the adults around you, their external voice to you when you were younger, has now become your internal voice. So I want to leave you with, whose voice is that? Because if it's not being kind to you, it's not your true voice.